Well, the stuff we're going to speak about, like Alice has been hearing about this for weeks now. You know?
Really?
So I'm hot to go, as they say.
You're ready to go.
There's been some thoughts swirling around, and the onion literally keeps unraveling on me. You know, I think I figure it. I think I have like a good framework to think about these things, and then I kind of zoom out, and it's like, whoa, this is not specific to this field, or people have already thought about this a lot.
Sounds like you're becoming a reporter.
I couldn't possibly
engaging in journalistic practice.
Is that journalistic practice? I thought that was just
trying to get to the truth. Yeah. You just keep doing more and more research. You talk to more people. Your opinion starts solidifying, and then you just keep going and going and going until you feel like you know what you want to say.
I'm starting to feel like I don't know if I'll ever know what I want to say, because do you ever get this feeling when you're working on a piece or something where it's just like you think you have an idea, and then it takes so little information, I think, to like flip something on its head. A lot of the times, a lot of the times, the idea, the argument, like hinges on one thing or one piece of evidence, and then you're like, oh, there's like uncertainty around this or something like that. So, but it's been interesting because I feel like as a data scientist at a company, your job is, well, it's not in the job description to think about these things. I think it's healthy to think about these things, but very often it's just like, here's your target, model this thing, and like don't worry about how the modeling is going to be used or what incentives exist to drive the modeling in the first place. So, yeah.
No, I feel you there. So should we start by defining or talking about what we think climate risk models are, what the different pieces are of them?
Yeah. I've actually not done as much reading around this particular thing, but I think I have like a vague idea.
Go for it.
But okay. So, oh my God.
I had to start with platforms last time, and so now it's your turn.
So I think like, okay, if we maybe I'm going to start at the end here, actually. And so in my head, an example of a climate risk product would be like maybe this like, is it called Open Climate Data by Carbon Plan or something like that, which is like property level wildfire risk for CONUS or present, and then maybe like in 50 years or 100 years, like with one modeling scenario. And so it's like property level. But the data that goes into it is often not property level. Like there will be some things like building characteristics.
You're saying there's no structural information in there right now?
I don't think the structural information.
I don't think there is.
I mean, that would be impressive at the property level over CONUS.
There's companies that do it.
Yeah.
Or claim to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, we start at the property level, and then we zoom out, and it's like there's some sort of idea around like projections of the future state of things that would drive wildfire risk, like hot, dry, windy index. Like how dry is it going to be in this area in the future, and how windy is it going to get windier given this, right? And I think often the outputs of those models are like it's like 100-kilometer grid.
Yep.
Which is much bigger than a building. a lot bigger. And so in between there, I think there's some downscaling that happens.
Yeah.
Which is like, again, maybe a little bit of like a Wild West area where it's like, okay, elevation, land cover. Do you incorporate projections about future land cover? At what resolution do you do that? So, okay, so there's the property level, there's the large grid scale, climate ensemble level, and then the bits in between, like there's like jumps at each point where like I feel like maybe like a scientist at a company is like looking at some plots and just being like, I think this is defensible. Should we do this? And then the commercial team's like, yeah, let's sell it. We're
tuning.
Ready.
It's called tuning.
Tuning.
Dial those knobs, you know.
Dial those. Yeah, I mean that's.
But like, I mean, we joke, but that's actually kind of what it is, right?
It is, and it's a huge part of the job in general. Whatever it is you're doing, right? Like, and that process is kind of hopefully linked to the outcome that the person you're doing this for is interested in.
Right.
Otherwise, you're kind of just guessing. Sorry, I'm struggling because it's like such a long chain. There's
it is.
Climate ensemble, downscaling, bias correction, and then there's like the hazard modeling itself, which is like rate of reoccurrence from the climate model or the ensemble of climate models. And then there's the how would a given impact hazard affect a given building?
Yep.
And just saying this out loud, this is just so crazy that we can do this supposedly, and that we are doing this, and that there are companies that do this. It's such a long modeling chain.
It is. Just to, I think, restate what you said. So we start with like the input climate model data. So this is like that CMIP stuff, right? The what does it stand for? It's like this
coupled model intercomparison project.
That's right.
Maybe?
That's right. And there's like so basically there's all these different climate model scenarios you can pick, right? So you can like pick the catastrophic one, or you can pick the middle of the road one. I think that's like what a lot of people do, like
the net zero one.
So you can like, so there's all these various models and their outputs available that are all useful for different things. So you can pick one, or maybe you can pick a couple, and then you downscale that thing because you take that 100-kilometer thing and then you're trying to make it, if you're using a 30-meter DEM, can you get it to 30 meter? If you're using a 3-meter DEM, can you get it to 3 meter? And then you go to the hazard risk. So that's like the specific thing, right? Like the event, like flooding or fire. And then with flooding, for example, you can be like, you know, what is the 1 in 100 chance? You can like model that out. What is the 1 in 100 chance that a flood will happen? Which is funny because like I remember looking into this earlier, but it's kind of a very unintuitive way to say it, because it doesn't mean that a flood's going to happen once every 100 years. Like it's like the what is it? It's like the 1% chance of that event occurring or being exceeded in a given year. So if you do the math, like over 30 years, there's like a 26% chance of that building flooding at least once. Or something like that. Like I think that's how the math shakes out.
Okay.
So
it's like a probability of exceedance, and it's a magnitude.
Yes.
It's kind of like Okay.
So that's the hazard. Then, like you said, it's like the vulnerability. So then, if you take the building, if you have building level information, you can be like, oh, is there a basement? Oh, what's the first floor elevation?
Yeah. What's it made out of?
Exactly. What's the thing made out
cabin?
of?
Yeah.
And then I feel like some people even try to do then after that, like the dollar impact. So then you like roll up all the all the exposure, I guess, which is like the vulnerabilities, like the the thing that could happen, and the exposure is like when the thing happens, like how long your building gets exposed to that, like floodwater, for example. Yeah, I mean, every single piece of that is insane. Like the amount of uncertainty in every step of that chain is absolutely insane to think about.
Yeah. Like, there's probably some pretty anxious statisticians that worked on this out there. Like, guys, you're not really expressing the work that we did effectively to people.
And one thing that's crazy too is just taking the risk scores. Like, I think this is the thing that everybody kind of understands. So I think Carbon Plan rolled their stuff up to risk scores for their wildfire thing. So it's 1 to 10. First Street stuff is the risk scores from 1 to 10.
Humans love 1 to 10.
The 1 to 10 risk scores. But the thing is, you can't actually compare risk scores from provider A to B to C, because some people are modeling just the risk score is just the hazard. So that's like the Carbon Plan situation where there's no
exposure.
There's no like building level information,
specific.
So they can't do the they can't do the vulnerability bit of it. They can just do the hazard bit of it. But then, so I think I actually don't know what First Street claims to be able to do now. But then there's other companies like CoreLogic. I think they recently changed their name to something that I don't remember. But
wait, is that Verisk?
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they claim to be able to do their risk scores are based on vulnerability because they're incorporating all this building level information. So you can't, there's no standard for comparing risk scores. So then when everything doesn't match up, people are gonna be like, well, it wasn't the same thing, so we're good.
Yeah. Or if someone gets, like, let's say a customer receives a piece of information they don't like, maybe because it's a risk score about a property they've already invested in, or that they're trying to sell, then they could just find another provider. And it seems like, based on the work that you guys did and that Carbon Plan did and some other places did, they could quite easily find a provider that could say what they wanted. Like that, there's like so much disagreement in the existing products.
Like you want this building to be an 8, but this guy did 4, so I'm going to go to the next one.
4? This is clearly an 8, guys. So something I've been thinking about, just like, so okay. So I think what we're saying is there's a problem with like opacity in modeling methods, uncertainty, just like complexity in the modeling. Like I don't blame these companies. They're doing something that's like highly technical, very difficult.
And there's like and the market wants it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I've really been thinking about a lot, is just like what, I think it probably really depends, right? Like there's probably a bunch of use cases, and do these companies evaluate the cost of a false positive or a false negative?
This is such
what would it cost the customer?
Yeah, no, the false positive thing is something that I've chatted with a few people about recently and have been thinking about. I'm glad you brought this up. Like, this is the example I keep thinking about. So, when the floods in the terrible floods in Texas happened, with that
with Camp Mystic.
Yes, the camp.
Yeah.
I think it was a terrible river flood type thing, and then after the fact, it was like, oh, that area was like high risk on First Street's maps and some other people's maps and stuff like that. The thing about it, and so like, yes, that's true. The thing about it is, looking at a lot of these maps and comparing them to FEMA's old flood maps, which everybody agrees are garbage. Or at least not garbage, but but old and out of date. Could be better.
Room for improvement.
But the thing is, so like First Street, for example, there's a lot more of the country that is high risk compared to the FEMA flood maps. And maybe some of it rightfully so, but what we also need to, so if that area rung up as high risk, and then this, bad flood, catastrophic flood happened, what about all the places where, what about all the other places that are flagged as high risk and never flood?
Yeah, of course. Like this, it's just like modeling 101, right? Like if you're predicting rare events and you say the rare events never happened, your accuracy is like 99%. Or whatever right? And I just think like I think
the thing is, it's like this risk is not some scientific measure. It's like it's a kind of arbitrary metric that is useful for like insurance to have like a relative number or like.
So
you know what I mean? Like it's like.
That's the thing I wonder is like, is it actually useful to insurance companies?
I mean, like if something like this has to be right. Like a lot of them are doing it in house now.
Yes. So this is something that I've been thinking about. Is like, should this be a private market thing, right? Like, is this? Do we want like a bunch of companies that are kind of at the whims of their customers, the whims of their investors? Experience a lot of pressure to, I don't know, maximize short-term profit. When they're modeling a long-term thing, and the reason why we care about this is because like over the long term we want to make correct decisions about this. I don't know. I guess we would have to talk to someone who like maybe consumes the outputs of these companies like specifically, and is like,
are you just saying that you can't really do this right if you're thinking about short-term return on investment? Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, I think so. Okay, the thing that I've been, you know how I said I've been like unraveling things a little bit. So I've been thinking about like these markets where there's like such a high information asymmetry between the seller of a service or a product and the buyer.
Okay.
Right, which you could argue is to some degree like the climate risk space, maybe a lot of geospatial analytics, and so. Services.
Where's the asymmetry? Like, as in the seller has way more information?
The seller has way more information about their product that the buyer cannot easily verify.
But aren't a lot of the buyers of this buying lots of this stuff from all kinds of different places? So in some sense, don't they have more information? I'm not sure about that, but I think it's a case of like if the buyer was truly well informed, then they should be able to do this themselves. Like an insurance company?
Like an insurance company. And I think, I mean, that's a good point. Maybe the buyers are not as, maybe there's
I guess if I was an insurance company, I would have my team do it myself, and then I would see what the three other guys who kind of claim they know how to do this say, and then I would ensemble it, or be like, everybody agrees about Long Beach in LA, and so like we can definitely crank up our rates over there, but
okay.
I don't know. I'm making this up.
But isn't there also information asymmetry in like how exactly does First Street's flood model work, for example?
100%. Oh, you're talking about the black box piece of it now.
Yeah. Like it's just you're buying this thing, and like you don't really understand how it works. But like if I buy a banana and I eat it, I'm like, oh, that was a good banana. You know, like I'm able to be like, this was a good, but I'm able to evaluate the quality of the thing that I just bought, right?
But is that unique to this? I mean, that's for a lot of technology, right?
No, it's not unique to this. That's what's interesting, right? Because like when we think about like, okay, if this is a problem and trying to evaluate this on rare events is a problem, then like how do other industries deal with this, right? Or like how do other industries deal with this thing where the seller has to do something really complicated, highly technical, that the buyer is maybe incapable of doing, or maybe incapable of fully understanding, or maybe simply will never have access to like full information about this. And I think
the time horizons on this make it unique in that sense. The time horizons and the rarity of the events. So it's like you just don't have, almost definitionally, you're like, you can't really test it.
Yes. Yeah. It's really hard. But there's a lot of scoring industries that are similar, like the credit risk scoring industry, where it's like, okay, this company has like this much cash flow or whatever, and this much debt, or these many defaults are happening, and therefore the risk we give this company a rating of AAA or whatever. I don't know if that's a real
You're pretending
rating,
you're Moody's like, or something.
Yeah. So I think there's like actual kind of similar. There's like parallels, right?
But isn't that kind of more based, like, yes, it's a black box what they're doing, but it's kind of more based on just the culmination of things that have happened up to this point, and then like a little bit of future projection, whereas this is like all future projection.
A lot of future projection.
And it is informed by the past and now, but also it's it is kind of looking forward in a way that I feel like is less so.
Very different. There's like,
I don't know. I'm just trying to differentiate it.
I just think that like as an example of how like incentives can maybe lead to bad outcomes, like financial crises, or to the mispricing of things, right? I think it's like interesting to think about it from that perspective. Of like, okay, these private companies that are basically fully dependent on like their customers,
right?
Like fully like if Verisk or like a big insurance company says like, this is wrong, you need to fix this, and they're like the majority of your income, like what are you going to do, right? Especially if there's no external regulator to say, whoa, this was a messed up decision you made right there. We should probably fix this or implement laws or policies so that it never happens again. So I think like from a technical modeling perspective, these are like very difficult, different problems. And I think from a verification perspective, like you don't actually know the true credit rating of a company because it doesn't exist.
Sure.
And like you actually don't know until it defaults or goes bankrupt whether your score was right or wrong. Another example is like maybe cybersecurity risk, right? Like just like the scoring industry, right? Like you take some very difficult to observe state and you like condense it to like a score which humans love, and you sell that, and it's like, what are the consequences of doing that? I don't know.
So let's play a scenario through where you are one of these companies doing risk scores, and let's say you decide that it is beneficial for you to mark things like, if there's any question about it, you mark it as high risk.
Okay. So you're like,
and so you're kind of like overly, yeah, it depends. I guess you could define it either way, cautious or not. But yeah, like what would happen? Yes, what would happen if you just predicted high risk that maybe isn't truly there in a lot of places?
Well,
how would that play out?
Home values might go down.
Yep.
Just hypothetically.
And so, I mean, this is already, so it's crazy because this has already happened, right? Because like Zillow,
I'm being a little facetious.
so what was this earlier this year or was it late last year, when Zillow had First Street scores like very prominently displayed as part of the every home listing, and then they quietly took it down because there was so much pushback from people being like, I think some of it was there was pushback from people.
Lawsuits.
Maybe there were lawsuits, but I think there was pushback from homeowners basically being like, this risk is like super high, and like my house has never flooded, and my home values are, you know, I can't sell my house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I actually would love to look at that data actually, which unfortunately we can't do because it's not open, but like who complained and where and what specific perils like caused this issue. I would imagine it's more likely to be wildfire than flooding, but I'm not sure.
I think I actually think it was flooding too, because I think there were a lot. I remember I haven't read the reporting recently, but I remember reading stuff about how areas were marked in like high flood risk zones, and people were nervous about buying the house. And there was some statistic about how like 80% of people look at this type of information before buying a house. So
which makes sense. Yeah, I would look at it.
But yeah, maybe fire risk is a bigger deal, especially out west. Yeah,
this was in California, I think. I could be wrong. I really should have read this before we did the podcast, but I think that could be a risk. Like going back to your scenario of like you're marking everything as high risk. Although, you know, maybe that would have the opposite effect. Like if there was just too much high risk, people would become desensitized to it and just say like, well, every house in this neighborhood, in this state is high risk, so I'm going to ignore this. I think, and I also don't know who would buy that.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, I guess Zillow must have been buying those scores, right?
Yeah.
They must have purchased.
And they still, I mean, it's still, they still link externally to that stuff. So there's still some relationship there. It's just no longer visible in the same way, which makes all the difference, you know?
Yeah. I don't even know how I would start communicating uncertainty around this.
Like, that's the thing, because
you're in the score.
It's pretty much regime. Never communicated. As soon as
how would you even do that?
As soon as you go 1 to 10, it's like that's the number.
Right. You would have to,
whatever number
you can't
put.
Go 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And now you have to start doing statistics and then like the 1 in 100 year stuff.
Exactly. Which you can look at. You can, like on riskfactor.com, you can look at the 1 in 100 layer, the you know, the various projections out. You can look at the raster layers.
Right.
But yeah, that's not the risk score. Like, I don't think that's what most people are looking at.
Yeah. Is that riskfactor.com? Is that First Street?
Yeah. Okay. It might have been branded into First Street now. This is all my memory from 2 years ago.
And you're saying you can look at the raster of like like this exceedance score that we were talking about?
You can look at the depth. So you can, for flooding, for example, you can look at the inundation depth for the 1 in 100 chance, the 5 in 100 chance. And you can look at that for like, and then you can look at that over various temporal spans, like how that's going to change with the 30-year projections or something like that.
Okay. And that's all open.
It's not open, but you can, like, if you have an account, you can look at it. This, maybe you can't anymore. I should have checked. But I remember looking at these, and you can look at those rasters. But even that's not communicating uncertainty necessarily. That's just, you're just looking at different layers.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe a better measure of uncertainty or a proxy for uncertainty would be, let's ensemble a bunch of providers and see what the spread of scores is for a given property. right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's really difficult to do.
Yeah.
Because
you have to get all the providers to agree to release all the layers that are actually comparable to each other. Yeah. So like, provider A has to give their 1 in 100, their 5 in 100 raster layers, and then all the companies have to do that. And then you have to measure each one of those things against each other. Because you can't you can't do the risk scores because everybody's defining the risk scores differently, or you need to make sure that everybody follows a convention and you set a standard for what the risk scores are going to measure if somebody's going to make one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's like desperately needed.
I see why it's not there yet because this is so new still.
Yeah.
I see why it's not there, but it kind of feels like if it's going to be exposed to, anybody who's looking at Zillow, which is so many people, like at that point, that level of ubiquity is, I mean,
it's,
yeah, I guess. So, I mean, to go back to your confidence thing, like, I don't know how you communicate the confidence, but I almost feel like it's one of those things where if it's too uncertain and we don't really know what these things say, then forget the confidence. Like, you just kind of shouldn't do it.
I agree. or it's now like when the realm of like academic research, or we spend a lot of time thinking about like what would verification look like, and it's like we can't project into the future this way, but maybe time is always passing. We can like freeze model outputs, we can like freeze what each provider says, and then we can evaluate them on a rolling basis, or like, yes, the 1 in 100 chances over time, but maybe aggregated over all properties, you should get some measure of like calibration, right? Like it's like 1 in 100 years, but then over all of the properties in a single year, like what's your occurrence? Is it way off? Can you calibrate that way? I think another concern that I have about this in general is if First Street changes their model, I don't know how many people are aware of this change, right? Like, are the old model outputs still going to be available? Because people made decisions based on those old model outputs, right? And now they're going to have to go back and change their decisions. But there's I would imagine there's a bit of a liability issue when you're like, okay, V3 is out and it's like totally different. And your customers have already made decisions based on V2. And like, how do you communicate that?
It's a fantastic point. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go.
I was going to say when we wrote about this a few years ago, I guess it's been a few years. We were in the opposite situation where we had an old version of their data from 2020 just sitting like, because they had shared it with us at that time for various they'd shared a bunch of data with a bunch of news organizations, including us. This is like predated me a long time ago from 2020. And then we asked them they had a new model since then, but they didn't give us the data from the new model at the same granularity that we had asked for. So we were forced to use the old model to do the calculations. So we were in a situation where we just couldn't even compare how different two models were.
Yeah. I mean, this is, and if this is the kind of thing that's affecting house prices, which is where I think the majority of Americans seem to store their wealth, or like that's where most of their net worth is in. This seems like it would deserve like a closer look, right? Or like maybe even some regulatory body around this. And I mean, in some ways, it's interesting that Zillow just like YOLO'd it. Yeah. They were just like, let's do it. Climate risk. Like, what are the possible outcomes? I don't know. I would love to speak to someone there. Like, I'm sure they have economists and like, I'm sure they thought about this.
And Redfin did it before Zillow.
Redfin, I remember seeing it on Redfin too and being like, huh, this house.
I mean, in some ways, it makes a lot of sense because those things are just providing you as the prospective buyer or somebody who's looking. You're just like, here's all the relevant information I need to know about this house. And like that data is relevant information.
But is it, like, I think, is it, can we really call it information? Like if when it's gone through that many modeling steps, it's almost like more of an opinion, I feel like.
Right.
Because so many decisions have been made in the modeling decisions. So,
but that's I'm not sure I would call it opinion, because then you could, I feel like with the same argument, you can then say, well, then climate models are opinions because they're these imperfect things and various climate models don't agree. And which scenario are you picking? So at the end of the day, you could call that an opinion too, I feel like, with that logic. So I think it's more than an opinion, but I take your point that it's not necessarily information.
Well, I think the scoring is probably an opinion.
Yeah.
This is our 1 to 10 score. I think that's I think it's fair to say,
sure.
Like someone decided, like, this is the 1, this is the 10. Someone decided, like,
yeah, but if you decided it based off of the distribution of all your things and you cut your breaks and you did all your things, then I feel like you can easily justify some logic that is beyond, I deem it to be a 4,
Yeah, yes. I just think, yes, you're right. When I say it's an opinion, I don't mean like literally a person deciding.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know, opinionated information. I don't know how to, like, I mean, like, if we just take the example, like, totally different, but like of calculating acreage over a crop mask, like, there's a ton of decisions that go into that. Like, do I do an erosion dilation? Do I remove obviously false positives? Do I manually validate and remove obvious false positives that I deem are false positives? That's an opinion, right? Like, that's you being like, oh, this kind of looks a little, I should remove this. And I just wonder how much of that kind of decision making goes into generating these scores. But yeah, not like someone sticking their finger in the wind and being like 4.
I think the crop mask, to compare the crop mask acreage numbers over Indonesia of palm versus building level risk scores of flooding over Indonesia. I think the crop acreage stuff is way more actual information than the risk scores.
Yes.
Those things you talked about of removing false positives and what decisions you make to account for the fact that you're at 10 meters and you got the field boundaries and erosion dilation or Olafson's, area estimation for the bounds or whatever. That's all still real data science.
Yeah,
I think.
And it's like, and I think you're attempting a direct measurement of the thing that you care about.
Yeah.
Right. Fundamentally.
Yeah.
Which is not possible with the risk.
Right. And going from 100-kilometer pixels to 30-meter stuff.
Right.
Is huge. And then one thing we haven't really talked about for the flooding case is like, and then there's all the hydrological parameters that you have your decision space on the hydrology side, which is like how you determine how water flows through this area. And so obviously a lot of that's based on how good the dam is. So if it's a 30-meter dam versus a 3-meter dam, and you have like areas with steep canyons, like the 30-meter, but they're super narrow, the 30-meter dam won't resolve them, and the 3-meter dam will. Yeah. So the water will just be going in totally different places. And then you also have to know what all the human physical infrastructure is within urban environments to know what people have done to actually manage the movement of water. And that data is often hyper local. There isn't a nice global database of that information. And so all of that can drastically change where your hydrological model determines where water's even going to go. So yeah, I don't know. It's huge.
I was looking at this the other day. We had like a crazy rain/hailstorm in Santa Fe, and I was looking at the drainage system, like just these like 1 meter holes in the side of the pavement. And like even combining that with a dam, I feel like is non-trivial because of the difference in the granularities. Like I imagine that depending on where you assign it or how you assign it to a particular part of the dam or in a slope, that can affect model outputs a lot also. And I mean, we could just keep on going, right? Like the geocoding. Right? I read this.
Oh, the geocoding.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen this Climate Financial Risk Forum
report. The UK thing.
Yes, the UK thing. It's
your home country's thing.
Like my home country. Yes. I mean, it's first of all, I'm kind of surprised that maybe there is more of this and I haven't found it, but I guess they had to get like 13 vendors to agree to do this. So that's already kind of impressive.
And then they had to have like anonymize everybody. Yeah.
Yes. They had to anonymize everybody.
We won't tell anybody. We won't tell anybody who's the worst or who's the best.
Well, we don't know who's the worst.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
With the geocoding, we know. We know that.
So yeah, you should explain what the geocoding thing is.
So I think they surveyed 13 different climate risk vendors for scores on, I can't remember what all the hazards were. I think there was heat, flooding, and maybe fire, but it wasn't as relevant in the UK.
I think that's right.
And they didn't, part of the experiment was, well, how do we even tell the vendors where we want the scores? And so they provided like varying levels of detail about the location. So the lowest level of detail might have been an address.
Yeah.
And then higher might have been maybe a lat long or a centroid. And then higher might have been like an actual building footprint that was provided by a polygon provided by the customer. And they looked at the dispersion in like the distance to the true distance of each of these addresses. And some of these were pretty wild. I mean, it looks like 10 kilometers off sometimes, and then the actual dispersion between the vendors, it could be really bad, especially when they provided less information.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I hadn't even thought about, but I guess it's like the fundamental geospatial problem of like, where is the thing?
Where is the thing?
That you can, where is the thing, right? That you care about.
Yeah.
So that really blew my mind.
I mean,
and so
what buildings data are you using? Is it perfect everywhere? Like we know Overture, as good as it is highly imperfect. In lots
variable.
Variable, right? Like really good in the US compared to Indonesia. I don't know why I keep picking that as a weird example.
Have you been looking at Indonesia recently? Okay.
In Iran, for example, it's like super spotty. Yeah. So there isn't even building coverage over a lot of the, outside the 2 to 3 major cities. There's basically almost no coverage of where even buildings are. So, but even in the US, there's still issues. And like if you're trying to do structural based stuff, have you heard of the National Structure Inventory?
I have not.
It is it's a US Army based geospatial product, but I think it's centroids, but it's pretty comprehensive and has structural level information like first floor elevation, does it have a basement? It has that level of information at the I think it's theoretically everywhere. I think so. I don't know how complete it is, but you should check it out.
Huh. I guess Zillow would probably have a bunch of this data.
Zillow would have a bunch of the data. Yep.
Like the structural information.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
they're probably best placed. And there's probably something interesting to be done with like the images of the homes or something like that. But yeah, I mean, Overture Maps is updated also, right? If I'm not mistaken.
It's updated all the time.
So when they, like, let's say even Carbon Plan's wildfire risk was, I think the buildings were based on Overture Maps. I don't know if they plan on updating with Overture. Like, is there going to be a new release every time?
That's a good question.
A new set of buildings released. There's got to be data integrity issue. I mean, Overture is like really good whenever I've looked at it, but like I'm sure buildings like sometimes disappear or totally change shape, or I don't know. That must happen.
Yeah,
right? Like it's such a large data set
for sure.
And we're talking about these scores in the aggregate. But what if it was your house that disappeared from Overture Maps or reappeared or like, you know, I think that there's like the potential for like large individual impacts and probably aggregate impacts in general. Yeah, what a sticky problem. And it is very new, right? Like, would you say it's been since like, I don't know, 2020, 2018?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the start of it. Yeah. I feel like it's only still recently that they have kind of broken through and more people know that this kind of data even exists, you know?
Yeah. I think the verification problem is interesting because, like, let's say you're a company. I think a lot of companies probably jumped on this because they saw an opportunity, right? They were like, people want this. Banks are asking us for this. We can make money off of this. But if there's no verification, or if it's hard to verify, then like, how do you compete and innovate? Like, how do you get feedback and say like, okay, this is what we're going to do next. This is where we need to fix the map. It must just be like customer input, basically, right? But I don't know what like First Street's differentiator is versus Jupiter or the XDI or any of these other ones. I don't know what the difference is. And so it seems like investors are pouring money into this.
But like kind of, right? Like that's kind of the claim.
Yeah, but it's like, what are you even tuning against?
Yeah.
There's what's the objective? I mean, they must have like, I don't know. Are there data sets?
In terms of verification, I mean, even though risk isn't really the thing you should be using to measure against real world events, like going back in time, and, you know, because they're not quite the way all these 1 in 100 returns and stuff, like they're not good analogies for testing based off of previous floods, but I don't know what else you can do.
Yeah.
In my mind, that's the thing you have to do is even though you kind of can't do it, I think you have to do it. Like you just have to get a huge database of known fires and floods and then test it against what these models say and see how much they agree. I don't know if people are doing that on the academic side. And then the other thing you can do, and what I want to do more of, is compare the models against each other.
But how? The people won't send you their data. I mean, they might send you their data. They're not going to send it to me.
They're not going to send it to you.
And I think that's the problem, actually. I think that's a big part of the problem is like, okay, I understand these companies need to make money and there needs to, you know, there's like IP and stuff like that. But I think maybe they're being a little short-sighted in that if there was more transparency, then maybe it would be easier to converge on like what each company's competitive advantage could actually be in terms of innovating. And like this happens. There's a lot of stuff that we buy that like where we're unable to evaluate the quality. Like pharmaceuticals is an example, right? So, some, yes, like I take the ibuprofen and I feel better, but some it's like I took the drug. Did I heal because I was recovering anyway? And so there's like an FDA for pharmaceuticals, right? And they define the standards at which you must perform in order to be able to put a drug on the market.
Yeah.
And not only that, they monitor the drugs, right? Even after they've been released, they continue collecting statistics on it. Right. There's a direct line for complaints, liability, and I don't even know what this would look like for climate data, but it feels like a first step would be one institution should have access to all of the data.
Yeah.
To monitor it. And then it's, it's always the same problem. Like, what are the outcomes? Like, what depends on this data, right? With pharmaceuticals, it's easy. It's like human health. With climate risk, it's maybe less easy. I don't know. Should it be that no home gets priced out of insurance in the US? I don't know.
Do you see the world of parametric insurance being related to this at all, or do you view that as a totally separate thing?
That's a good question. I see it as related.
Yeah. But that feels that feels more real to me in some ways.
Yeah.
Because if you like, all right, I'm going to come up with the parameter that my system can measure. And as that parameter changes and goes over some threshold, then insurance gets triggered. And it's all about how good my parameter is.
Wait, walk me through that again. So, okay, in the example of flooding, for example.
Yeah. So like if I have this parameter that my system produces for flooding that changes over time, and then that like parameter gets exceeded, or like inundation, or like...
Oh, but you're talking measurement now.
Yeah.
Like detection and measurement. Right. So not like forward looking. You're talking about like automating insurance payouts?
Yeah, exactly. Like insurance will get paid out if I exceed this parameter, which changes over time, that is based on measurements plus other information.
Okay. Actually, this feels less related, maybe, but
but in some ways it's
enough.
I agree that it's less related, but I think the reason I asked the question and the way I think they might be related is kind of the way it feeds into the pricing of it. Yeah.
Yes. How much do we charge for this?
Right.
Yes. Like, how much does someone need to pay over time, aggregated over all of our customers, for us to make money and for this to be a sustainable insurance business? Yeah, actually, then yes. Yeah. The pricing aspect for sure. And I think that's what like a lot of companies are trying to use climate risk scores to do, is to price in climate risk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Whatever that means, which I guess is this, but yeah.
But yeah, they're kind of two different models of how insurance should work, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the insurance would be like a potential consumer of the risk score, but they probably have a ton of data to do the financial modeling on top of this. But then again, you have to project into the future with growing trends. I'm not sure, but don't you end up with situations where, I don't know, with the wildfire thing, I just remember maybe somewhere in California, this was after a fire, it turned out there were a bunch of homes that were uninsured because insurance companies just refused coverage because the state or some local government had mandated that they couldn't increase their premiums related to climate risk or something like that.
And so they just didn't have insurance?
Or they had to go with something like insanely expensive that was not feasible. I would I wish I had looked this up before the podcast, but I remember reading something about that, and that strikes me as like maybe a failure mode. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a big subject, dude.
Yeah.
I feel like we just scratched the surface.
I know. I feel like I gotta go read a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. There's just so much to talk about.
Yeah.
It's it's super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's like policy, real world effects, the science, which is really interesting, all of like the geospatial stuff of like downscaling, intersections, matching, how does this affect the outputs? And then the statistics, the forecasting aspect. It's pretty interesting.